The interesting thing that my Rosh Hashiva mentioned to us several times, quoting Chachamim or Kedoshei Elyon. He wouldn't say where he heard it, but he mentioned it several times in very serious shiurim, that there's a segula that if somebody gazes at the Neiros Chanukah, it has an effect on their emunas Chachamim. That by gazing at the Neiros Chanukah, it's mashpia on the nefesh of a person in his emunas Chachamim. And the truth is, that's not the first clue by far, that there's something unique in the relationship between the mitzvah of Chanukah and the concept of Chachamim in general. I mean, we have many mitzvahs d'Rabbanan that we do, Netilas Yadayim, shaking a lulav on the other days of Yantif, and many others, and we make a bracha before we do those mitzvahs. But only by the bracha on Neiros Chanukah, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvahs v'tzivanu, is that the place that the Gemara on Daf Chav Gimel in Shabbos asks, the Heichon Tzivanu, and where did HaKadosh Baruch Hu command us to light the Neiros Chanukah? Because the Chachamim told us to do it, not the Rabbeinu Shalom. And the Gemara answers, no, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to listen to the Chachamim. But we see that the flagship mitzvah of mitzvahs d'Rabbanan is the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. And how could we forget, us Talmidim of Meseches Yevamos, how could we forget what the Gemara told us? Maybe we slipped through it. It wasn't the nekuda of the sugya, but the Gemara told us in the order of the arayos of the Mishnah, in the first Mishnah in Yevamos, that it's appropriate for the Tana to list first the one that's learned through a drasha. Kivan da asya midrasha chavivale. There's a special chavivas because it came from a drasha, and some mefarshim connect that Gemara, our Gemara, Beis Amid Beis in Yevamis on the bottom, to the famous Divrei Chazal that say that chavivin Divrei Seifrim, that the words of the Chachamim were more beloved, Yoiser miyena shel Torah, more than the words of Torah itself. Astonishing. How could we understand such a thing? That the words of the Chachamim have a certain level of chavivos greater than the words of Torah themselves. There's a pasuk that we say, a pasuk in Yeshaya that we learn in the summer months in the Shiva de Nechemta, where we say, Ki rabim b'nei shaymema mibnei be'ula. We say that there are more or greater children of the desolate wife than children of the married wife. And Chazal say a very, very unique drasha. Chazal say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu compares, as we know, Yerushalayim without a Beis HaMikdash to the Almana, to the Shaymema, and Yerushalayim with the Beis HaMikdash to the Be'ula, to the wife that lives with her husband. And Chazal say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that Rabim Tzadikim He'emaditi B'churbana, I was able to raise greater or more Tzadikim in the time of Churban Beis HaMikdash, Yoiser mi bibinyana, more than the time of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, when the Beis HaMikdash was built. Rav Hutner in the Chanukah Pachad Yitzchak in Maimer Ches, Rav Hutner says, he talks so strongly about this Chazal, you could almost feel him jumping out of his seat while he's writing the Maimer. He says that any mevakesh es devar Hashem, anyone who cares about the devar Hashem, liboy mistaer, his heart storms to understand what it means. We know that when the Beis HaMikdash is built, ki mitzia in teitzei seira, that's the source of Torah for Klal Yisrael. How could it be that there's an adifus, there's some benefit, there's some maila in the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash? And he says sometimes the hardest concepts need the simplest mishalim. And I want to tell you a mashal, and it's a mashal that we can connect with very easily here in yeshiva. He says a mashal to a Rebbe who's giving a shir. And he says, while the Rebbe is giving shir, the Talmidim have the tainug, the pleasure. The Rebbe is facing them, he's focused on them, he prepared for them, and he's giving over the Dvar Hashem to them, and they are receiving it. But what happens, he says, when the Rebbe is silent? Shtikas harav, the Rebbe is silent. That's a very difficult time for the Talmidim. The Rebbe is not saying shir. The Torah is not being learned. Says Rav Hutner, what would happen if there would be a certain Talmud that would have the ability, the talent, a special talent, that even while his Rebbe is not saying shir, he could listen in on the thoughts of his Rebbe. He could listen to the Rebbe thinking, la'atzmai. He says that Talmud, when he's listening, it's true, those thoughts are much harder to understand. Because you could be sure, when a Rebbe gives shir, he caters the shir to the minds of those listening. And when the Rebbe is just thinking by himself, it's a whole different story, it's a different level of learning. But that Talmud that could listen into the Rebbe's thoughts, if he could work hard to connect with those thoughts, the level that he's going to be receiving is much more profound and much broader and much deeper than anything he would have heard in shir. Says Rav Hutner that when the Beis HaMikdash is built, that's a bechina of the Rebbe is saying shir. We feel the hashgacha of Hashem. Hashem is focused on us. Hashem is smiling at us. Hashem is, the panim el panim, the kruvim are facing each other. There's a certain sense of receiving from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When darkness comes, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, that's a mashal of shtikas harav. Hashem is not facing us anymore. That ha'oras panim, that bright smiling kaviyachal, that bright smiling countenance is not there anymore. It's dark, it's hidden. It's hard to perceive. But we know that even when we can't see the shefa coming from Shemayim, even when we can't see the bracha, even when it seems to be such a dark time, we know that that's a facade. We know that maybe it feels like the Rebbe is not saying shir, but what's the Rebbe thinking about? What's the machsheves harav? What's the Rebbe thinking about? He's just thinking about his Talmidim. And same thing, the Chachmei Yisrael, they're able to understand the Torah when the Beis HaMikdash is built and the Torah is being taught in normal times and in normal ways. But when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, and it's hard to find Hashem. Hashem is bahastara. Hashem is b'choshech. It's darkness. There's a darkness descends, the darkness of Galus. And it doesn't seem as clear, the connection between Hashem and His nation. But the Chachmei Yisrael have the ability to be able to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu even when they can't understand Him. Even when the Hanhaga is hidden. Even when things are going on that don't seem to be good. They still have the emunah and the strength to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That level of connecting to Hashem is so much more profound that it raises even greater tzaddikim and greater talmidei chachamim. You know, like the Gemara tells us that chacham adif mi navi. A chacham is better than a navi. And there are many different ways to understand that. But according to this approach, the idea is that a Navi only receives what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him. What's begaloi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shares something with him. The Navi receives it. But a Chacham struggles to understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, even in the areas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not reveal. That's the whole job of a Chacham, to figure out what is the Ratzon Hashem, to learn the Sugya, to be Medayik, to make a drasha, to reach deeper. And even when I'm not receiving it, there's no Beferish Pasuk, there's no explicit mitzvah, there's no open Pasuk that tells me what to do. The Chachmei Yisrael, down to us here in Yeshiva, we work hard to struggle through to figure out what does Hashem want from us, what is Pshat and Taisvis, what is the halacha in this case, what does the Mechaber mean? This is a special quality that Chachmei Yisrael have, that they're able to reach beyond the normal channels of when things are normal, normal so to speak, between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just as a dugma ledavar, the Gemara says in Saita on Daf Mem Tes that once the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, the Gemara says, on what does the world stand? Alma, Amai Koi, what does the world stand? And the Gemara says the world stands on Kedusha de Sidra, v'Yehei Shmei Rabba de Agadita. What does that mean? Kedusha de Sidra is the Kedusha of Uval Tzion. When there's no Beis HaMikdash, the world stands on the Kedusha of Uval Tzion and Yehei Shmei Rabba by Kaddish. What does that mean? So the Maral, in the Nesiva Avodah, Perek Yud Aleph, the Maral says that we understand that there's a Shamayim and there's an Oretz. That's our whole life. That we know the Torah comes from Shamayim, and we here on the Oretz receive that Torah and try to send back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the being Mekayim, the Ratzon Hashem. Says the Maral, look at the Kaddish in Uval Tzion, where it says Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. It says Kadosh 3 times, and the Targum, what we say in Uval Tzion is actually the Targum on those Psukim in Yeshaya. The Targum says there's Kedusha in Shamayim, where the Shechina is. There's Kedusha on the earth, and there's Kedusha la'olam u'la'ol me'ol maya. There's Kedusha in another place, a higher place. And in Kaddish also, when we say Yehei Shmei Rabba, we say Yehei Shmei Rabba mevorach la'olam u'la'ol me'ol maya. We talk about this further, higher place. Says the Maral, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, it's hard to see the relationship between Shamayim and Aretz. This shefa, this clarity that came down, that's so pasha to us when the Beis HaMikdash is built, that Hashem is taking care of us, it's difficult to see. But don't think Hashem is not taking care of us. Just because we don't see it, it just means that it's coming from a higher, more hidden place. And that higher, more hidden place, let's call it that Kodesh HaKodashim, like the Kodesh HaKodashim, which is a hidden place within a hidden place. That hidden place is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of us from in a time of Galus, and that's where the Chachamim are able to reach in their struggle to understand the Devar Hashem. So when the Yevanim came and attacked Klal Yisrael, and it's true that the Beis HaMikdash was there during the time of the Yevanim, but the Yevanim did all in their power to extinguish the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Timu kol hashmanim shebeheichel. They were mitame all the oil in the Beis HaMikdash. They dominated the Beis HaMikdash. They controlled the Beis HaMikdash. They defiled the Beis HaMikdash. They prevented us to receive from the Beis HaMikdash what we ordinarily receive. The Chashmonaim, the Chachmei Yisrael, who are accustomed, Chacham Adif Minavi, they're accustomed to having emunah in Hashem, whether we understand Him or not. Whether we could see the clarity from Shamayim, or we have the emunah of a Gavhei Meraimim, of a Olam Ule'ol Me'ol Maya, the Chachamim remained be'emunah, and the stories the Chazal tell us about the Limud HaTorah in times of Sakana, in the times of the Yevanim, the Mesiras Nefesh for building Heilige Kadosh v'Tahar families in the times of the Yevanim. The Mesiras Nefesh for mitzvahs speaks as a testament to their unfailing emunah in a HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's taking care of them, despite the fact that that's absolutely not what was nicker at the time. And because of that, and in that zechus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the hashgacha to peek out from the Kodesh HaKodashim, and that's that special jar of oil that's munach b'chaysamay shel Kayin Gadol, which the Mefarshim struggled to understand why it needed to have the seal of the Kayin Gadol. But the seal of the Kayin Gadol indicates that it has shaychus to the Kodesh HaKodashim, to the hidden, to the lefnai v'lefnim, to that secret place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu watches us even when things are difficult. And from there the Nes erupted. And from there, the Neiros shone, those Neiros night after night after night, breaking all the rules of Teva and demonstrating to the world how correct the Chachamim are to believe that whether it's Chayshech or Or, it's irrelevant. For us, it's Or. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching us. Chachamim that are able to connect with the Ratzon Hashem beyond when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making it clear to us. Those are the Chachamim that are able to be mechavein to the Ratzon Hashem. And that's why there's a special chavivus for Divrei Chachamim. There's Kivan de Asya Midrasha Chaviva. There's a Chavivas of the words of the Chachamim. You know why? Because for me to follow instructions means that I am able to relate to you when you are relating to me. When you tell me what to do, so I can do it. But for me to make a drasha, for me to make a takana, heichon tzivanu, for me to be mechavein to the Ratzon Hashem where Hashem didn't say what we should do, that means that I'm connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu not just on the simple level of when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is communicating with me. That means even in a time of darkness, even a time that's hidden, I'm pushing myself higher to be able to connect to the Ratzon Hashem, and that's why there's such a chaviva, such a special preciousness to the words of the Chachamim, and that's why when we look into the Neiros of Chanukah, the Neiros of that Hashgacha that peeked out from that special place of Olam Ula'ol Me'ol Maya, from that Kodesh HaKodashim, it infuses us with Emunas Chachamim. So I began by mentioning that we live in times nowadays where sometimes it's hard to go into a Chanukah with a complete heart of simcha after hearing about tragedies and experiencing anti-Semitism and dealing with personally and communally and globally the many, many challenges that you didn't deal with today. But the truth of the matter is that those neiros that are shining in the menorahs all over this room, those neiros that are shining, the special hashgacha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that reaches out into the darkness and ignites the heart of every single yid, that Ur is with us. And it's with us most of all in the Beis Medrash, when we do the same thing that Chachmei Yisrael did in the days that they had to play dreidel when the Yevanim were walking by. We do exactly the same thing. We toil and we struggle. It's a sweet struggle. But we toil and we work hard. What does Hashem mean? What does the Gemara mean? What does Tosfos mean? How do I understand the Rashba? Why is there an extra word in the Ritva? How do I reconcile two Rambams? We're doing the same thing, working hard to understand the Ratzon Hashem when it's not handed to us on a silver platter. And that means that the light of Chanukah shines in a Beis Medrash brighter than it shines anywhere else. And the light of the Nes Chanukah shines in a Beis Medrash brighter than it shines anywhere else. So while outside may be a time of darkness, it's important for us here in Yeshiva to fill ourselves not just with the Or HaTorah, but with the Simcha of the Or HaTorah, and to be able to dance and experience and be Makir Tov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He has that unbelievable kesher with us. Shesamta chelkeinu ben Yoshvei Beis HaMedrash, that He placed us with the Yoshvei Beis HaMedrash. It's a time, a Chanukah Mesiba is a time for us, and I'm going to be a Shliach Tzibur to express our Hakaras HaTov. First and foremost to the Rosh Hashiva for his unbelievably inspiring leadership every single step of the way, and to the Mashgiach, and the Rabbeim, and the Roshei Kollel, and the Meishivim, and the Bnei HaKollel, for each one for their contributions to the Beis Medrash and to what we accomplish on a daily basis. But more than all of that, Hakaras HaTov, our greatest sense of gratitude and our greatest sense of love and admiration is to every single one of the Talmidim of the Yeshiva. In this generation, Tafshin Pei Vav, you are the warriors of Klal Yisrael. You're the ones that, despite the fact that the world is changing at a crazy pace, technology, AI, all these incredible changes going on, despite the fact that there's pain in the world, and there's fear in the world, and there's anxiety in the world, despite the fact that sometimes we feel embattled from outside, you have come to this yeshiva, and you have created a place of joy, of life, of geschmack. When we walk into the Beis Medrash, you hear it from outside. when the Rabbeim come in the mornings, every Rebbe is busy and works hard to prepare his shiurim, but the Rabbeim come in and they leave more invigorated than they came because they spend time with you. And it's an opportunity for you as Talmidim to recognize the Mesiras Nefesh and the joy with which your Rabbeim and the Hanhala come to Yeshiva, but also for us as Hanhala to be Makir Tov and to express our love and admiration to every single one of you for being part of this unbelievable Kiddush Hashem. You cannot imagine what this looks like outside the Beis Medrash. In today's world, in 2025, soon to be 2026, that there are people sitting around, we are studying the Gemaras that are centuries old with the same love, with the same care, with the same ideals, with the same values. Thank you for being part of this Kiddush Hashem. Let's bench together, and then Rabbi say, let's dance together. Yashikaya.